Hello, I'm Eunsung Tae, and today I'll be presenting my research on teacher professional vulnerability and how it operates as a relational practice that may strengthen teachers' self-efficacy and reduce turnover and tension. This project focuses on how teachers themselves define vulnerability in professional contexts. Teacher turnover disrupts not only instruction but also classroom relationships. In the 2022-2023 school year, 23% of teachers left their school, 30% of new teachers left, and nearly half of new teachers exited the profession within 5 years, especially in high-poverty schools. When teachers leave, particularly mid-year, students must repeatedly adjust to new expectations, teaching styles, and relational norms. This instability weakens engagement and learning. These patterns raise an important question. Beyond pay and policy, what experiences make teachers want to stay? Most retention policies focus on salary, bonuses, mentoring, and working conditions. While these strategies matter and they often work, they overlook the psychological and relational dimensions of teaching. Teaching is fundamentally relational work. Teachers' persistence depends on whether they feel effective, respected, trusted, and meaningfully connected to students and colleagues. At the same time, vulnerability is often framed as weakness. However, scholars like Brené Brown argue that vulnerability can function as courage and authenticity. A key gap is that professional vulnerability is rarely distinguished from personal vulnerability, and teacher-specific measurement remains limited. This study addresses 3 questions. First, how do teachers define and enact professional vulnerability? Second, which dimensions are essential to teacher professional vulnerability, or TPV? Third, how might TPV relate to self-efficacy and turnover and tension? My hypothesis is that TPV practices build relational trust and emotional energy, which strengthen teacher self-efficacy and indirectly reduce burnout and turnover and tension. For methodology, I use a 2-stage alpha-informed qualitative interview design with 8 secondary school teachers across subjects and career stages. In stage 1, teachers evaluated proposed vulnerability subconstructs using a content validity ratio with a critical value of 0.75 for 8 experts. In stage 2, I conducted focused in-depth interviews with the same 8 teachers and thematic analysis using only the validated subconstructs. The CVR results showed clear patterns. Emotional and relational vulnerability demonstrated strong convergence. Pedagogical and institutional vulnerability also met thresholds, though some items and questions required refinement. Importantly, personal self-disclosure failed to meet the validity threshold, indicating limited agreement that it is essential to professional vulnerability. So after stage 1, I moved on to stage 2, which involved in-depth interviews with the teachers, and here are my findings. So first, teachers consistently described vulnerability as calibrated and bounded openness, not oversharing, and many of them did vulnerable practice based on their judgment, timing, and professional responsibility. Second, psychological safety consistently preceded vulnerable practice. Teachers emphasized that openness only felt productive when trust existed with students and institutions. Finally, institutional conditions shaped vulnerability. Evaluation pressure and job security influenced how much risk teachers felt able to take. These findings suggest that TPV operates as a context-dependent professional practice. Trust and psychological safety determine whether vulnerability feels productive or risky. When teachers see openness lead to engagement and growth, vulnerability reinforces self-efficacy. When openness is penalized, teachers retreat to safer practices. This creates a feedback loop. Vulnerability fosters engagement, engagement produces student growth, and student growth reinforces teacher self-efficacy, encouraging continued openness. This study provides an empirically grounded framework for teacher professional vulnerability. It clarifies boundaries between professional vulnerability and personal disclosure, positing vulnerability as a resource for relational teaching in teaching context. Most importantly, it establishes the conceptual foundation for developing a teacher professional vulnerability scale. For future directions, I will develop a scale based on the 4 subconstructs. I will also validate the scale with larger and more diverse teacher samples and test associations with self-efficacy, burnout, and turnover intention. This work also invites examination of school conditions, such as supportive evaluation and psychological safety that enable vulnerability practices. Thank you for listening.